Hello and welcome to the GPCA Podcast. My name is Hamad Qaed, a Field and Supervision Engineer from Bapco Refining. And today we have a very special guest, Dr. Christian Kohlpaintner from Brenntag. So first question, Doctor. Briefly, in a minute, tell us who Dr. Christian is and what does Brenntag do?
Yeah, I'm actually a chemist by education. So I made my PhD in Bavaria in Munich. And then I spent 32 years in the chemical industry on both sides of the table, meaning on the manufacturing side, bulk chemicals, but also specialties. And also now, since about 5 years, CEO of Brenntag, which is the other side of the table, which is chemical distribution, which is a very peculiar part of the chemical industry. And I'm doing this since 2020.
2020. Oh, a perfect year to start working in a distribution company.
Yeah, absolutely. It was quite a journey.
Almost 30 years of experience.
Yeah. More than
Has 2020 or the last 5 years been the most challenging for you?
I think they have been challenging in that sense that, first of all, running the largest chemical distributor in the world is a task by itself. Then as a CEO in particular, giving all the demands we had during that period of time. When I was about 10 weeks in office, we had COVID hitting the world, and then making sure that the companies operating and maintain supply to our customers was the key topic, and I think that was quite challenging. But then you had, some people call it polycrisis, right? You added one crisis after the other, and that has been, quite a challenging phase. And now we also need to recognize that currently the chemical industry is probably going through the longest and extended downturn the industry has seen since I'm there, which is more than 30 years.
Wow, okay. So you mentioned COVID, the challenges of COVID. So what do you think was the key factor to adapting to these challenges? Because I'm sure every single day there are so many new laws, regulations. Each country, each region had their own regulations. So what do you think you were doing that made you different from your competitors, that made you be able to adapt to these challenges?
One good thing is that my predecessors did a very good job in globalizing the company. And Brenntag, as I said, is the largest chemical distributor in the world. We are present in 72 countries. 40% of our business only is in Europe. 40% is in North America. 10% is in Asia, and 10% is in Latin America. So that means we are the only truly global chemical distributor worldwide. And as I said, by far the largest one. And that helped us to navigate quite well through these distortions of supply chains and all the difficulties which came with COVID. And maintaining customers and maintaining our customers with supply was the key topic. But again, the global setup and being able to draw on various supply chains, that has helped us tremendously. And is, by the way, also, I would say, a very valid recipe for the future. So in that respect, I've been blessed, which has been created by my predecessors.
So you talked about the future. We mentioned COVID. What about this past year? Has it been challenging? Has it been smooth sailing?
No, I think 2024 has been a very, very challenging year.
Yeah.
Because we have quite some important topics to discuss and describe. I think it's as I said before, probably is one of the longest down cycles or prolongation cycle we have seen due to many reasons. Overstocking during COVID, so the destocking cycle was extremely long. Demand is slowly improving, but again, not that we make giant leaps now forward. So you have a gradual improvement on the volume side. And 24 has in that sense been just an extension of 2023, which was already a very difficult year for the chemical industry. Now, this is a little bit different region by region, I must say. Again, we are truly global, so that means we have excellent insights of what's going on in the regions. And have said it was to investors, but also publicly many times. The United States is a more robust market than a lot of people think it is. And so we are quite pleased with how the chemical market is developing in the United States. We see trouble for Europe at the moment, but also going forward. I'm sure we can talk about this in a moment. We see now slightly recovery in Asia. Still, China is a big question mark around export markets and what they do with their surplus volumes. And Middle East, of course, is also on a growth path very clearly. The other region which I'm concerned about is currently Latin America. So region by region, we see different impacts. But I would say 2024 from a demand standpoint of view has been slightly better than 2023. But again, it's not yet a significant change to what we have seen.
And what about 2025? We're almost done with 2024. Do you think 2025 is when the curve is going to start going up, or do you think the decline will continue?
Yeah, when I look at the profile of that recovery, we are, if you want to call it a recovery, but when you look on the profile of it, it indicates that the turning point of the cycle is not far out. Typically, that again, the last 30 years I have seen this over and over again. When things are really great, you cannot imagine that things become really, really bad. And the same is true for the reverse. Though if things are so bad as they are, you hardly imagine that things will turn again. But they will. And the chemical cycle typically follows a relatively clear logic. You see first a slight recovery on the material science part, so on the more industrial chemical side, on the demand side. Then you see it also how it works down into the specialties fields. And all of that we can see at this moment. So from that perspective, I feel the end of the downturn, or at least the bottoming out near on the demand side. The big unknown in this whole equation is the pricing side and how prices will develop going forward once capacity utilizations rates are going up and have been restored to maybe hopefully pre-COVID levels. So that's where we look for. So I'm slightly positive for 2025. But again, it's also reading a little bit in the crystal ball, so nobody really knows exactly what will happen, also geopolitically.
Okay, so we talked about, you just mentioned the geopolitics we have here in the Middle East, lots of issues, some improvements, sometimes it gets worse. In Europe, the Ukraine-Russia war. How much of this geopolitical issues have affected the supply chain? Because I can imagine this after COVID, what's happened here, and with geopolitics, that was another huge challenge.
Yeah, it has its challenges. And again, what you need to do, I would say, if you run a company like ours, is make sure that you are positioned to actually deal with all those uncertainties and address them accordingly. So global setup necessarily helps, and also being able to draw on various supply chains in times of also geopolitical tensions. So we have seen this over and over, not only in COVID, but also, when you talk about other political events, in particular the Ukrainian-Russian war, you clearly need to be set up in a resilient way, which allows you to maintain supply to our customers. And this is, where I'm feeling that geopolitical tensions, or I'm clear that geopolitical tensions will play a big role going forward. But I'm also optimistic that the industry, in particular we as a distributor with our setup, will be able to deal with it. How it will look like in detail, I can't tell you. But I'm confident in the capabilities we have built and the setup that we have built, that no matter what will happen, we will deal with the situation and going forward.
And you also mentioned a very strong region, which is the US. We obviously just had a new President Trump being elected. There's a lot of, the market seems to be happy with that election, so it looks positive. Are you positive? Do you think 2025 will be a great and even better year for the US?
I think the US will be quite successful over the next decade. This is my prediction. So I'm sometimes saying the winner of the next decade will be the United States, based on the superior access to raw materials and superior access to energy, on par, with other regions, of course, but I believe the US is very well positioned now to draw on that, and will be a very successful and a very nicely developing chemical market. So I'm very happy that we have 40% of our business already in the United States, so that we can actually draw on that, what's going on, as most of the products we are distributing in North America are also coming and are produced in North America. So that means tariff discussions for us is less an issue, and that's the peculiarity of the distribution model, different from a manufacturing play. So that means I've been asked overall for Brenntag how you see the election of Trump. I said I'm neutral to slightly positive. If I only look at North America, then I'm saying I'm very positive.
Okay. And you also mentioned the change of supply chains, new suppliers. Do you think companies nowadays, maybe after COVID, realize that it's very important for them to diversify their suppliers so they have a more robust supply chain? Do you think companies are learn from that lesson, or are they still slow?
Yes and no, because sometimes there's only so much you can do in a certain period of time. What I think has worked well, in particular also for the European chemical industry, but also other regions are doing a similar thing, is going outside of their home market, of the domestic market, with operations, with manufacturing assets. And this is, I would say, where that's not happening overnight, because you need to have deliberate investment decisions to be taken so that you can invest in certain regions and be active there. So I think that kind of learning and setting it into action is ongoing as we speak. Is it happening to the extent which I believe it is necessary? Probably not yet. Drawing on various supply chains is also very important, and here chemical distribution is indeed an important part of that. Sometimes people don't understand well what a chemical distributor is doing. So 80% of what manufacturers are producing roughly globally are sold through their own salespeople, through their own sales channels, with their own marketing people. And about 20% is channeled through chemical distribution.
Like your company?
Like my company, because we are servicing a customer base which is taking very small volumes. Sometimes a drum, sometimes a canister, sometimes half a pallet. We are servicing a customer base manufacturers cannot and don't want to engage with. At the same time, most of our suppliers we are representing are also our customers, because when they run a large chemical plant, they also need small volume parcels of chemicals for process aids and many other things. So that means a distributor like us is connecting the supplier and customer base like almost a spider in the web. And once you know that, then you see what the role of a distributor can be of such a global reach like us. It is offering a channel to a market which can otherwise not be tapped. And that is, as I said, roughly 20% of the output of chemical manufacturers, which is serviced through chemical distribution. I believe here we have not fully explored that potential yet.
And the GCC or...
In the GCC particular, but also globally, I think there's a lot of room to grow. And our industry, one also needs to add, is extremely fragmented. So we are the number one by far. We have about 17 billion euro in turnover. So we are by far the number one in that industry, undisputedly. And we still have only 5 or 6% market share. So that means consolidation in our industry is a very important topic. And this is why we as Brenntag, as one example, are spending almost every year 500 million in mergers and acquisitions to consolidate the market and actually growing our platform above and beyond.
So you just mentioned how Europe has the capacity to stay competitive. Maybe a way to stay competitive is through technology, of course. Technology advancement, the big buzzword, AI, artificial intelligence, everyone's throwing it there. Do you think, especially for supply chain optimization, using these technologies can make such a big difference? Do you think that companies are utilizing technology enough, or do you think that's still untapped? The potential is much larger and companies aren't utilizing, or how much of an impact that technology will have in this industry?
I think the industry is not utilizing this enough at this moment, because on one hand, we need to be cognizant of when we talk about Europe here, what the underlying issue is in Europe right now. And the underlying issue in Europe is that indeed energy-intensive value chains are coming tremendously under pressure, and that requires a reconsideration of what kind of capacities for certain products are really needed in Europe and can be actually run competitively. And I think here, I see quite some homework to be done in the chemical industry in Europe to fix that topic. The second homework which needs to be done in Europe, and I've been very outspoken about this, is we need to think about combining portfolios or regrouping portfolios in a relevant way, because Europe doesn't need 5 or 6 surfactants players. It needs 2, maybe, who are strong enough to withhold the pressure which comes from those strong players we just were talking about. So this is the fundamental homework they need to do. What is the art is actually to do what the European chemical industry has been doing the last 30 years, and this is to counterbalance that pressure with an increased focus on innovation and new products and new processes, and using technology to drive that. And here I believe we need to strongly push for more innovative capacity and power, and utilizing also artificial intelligence is just one example to really make that happen. And I see, some encouraging signs that this is coming, but let's not be naive. The other regions and the other players do the same.
Yeah.
So I think it is extremely important now for Europe to respond to that challenge in 3 ways: restructuring, regrouping of portfolios, and a strong push for innovation and new products and processes. Other than that, the European chemical industry will have its challenges going forward very clearly. In our company, I have been pushing very strongly to become a more data and technology-driven company and distributor. So we have numerous examples where we're using artificially based algorithms to drive our sales force. I have around 6,000 salespeople in the world, and we have algorithms placed for them that they get a nudge actually in the morning by the system saying, hey, your customer will order in about 2 weeks his drum of acetone. You better call him today, because he will make a buying decision very soon. And that has helped us to eliminate a lot of our churn rate and thus growing our business. So I see applications like this as very helpful and important to drive really the growth of our company forward.
And one last one.
Sure.
Question. What do you think of the GPCA Forum this year? Is this the first time you attended? What are your thoughts?
No, actually, it's really the first time I'm here. So I'm very honored because I've been invited to speak or be a speaker. So I feel deeply honored that I got the invitation, and that made me, of course, come now here. It's interesting, I'm so long in the chemical industry that no matter in the world where you go to one of these events, you always meet a lot of people
Yeah.
So it's fantastic, and it's quite impressive here in Oman to be also. It's one of the few countries I have not been in my life, so it's the first time also to be in Oman. So it is very, very inspiring, very good, and also very interesting to see where the industry stands and what are the challenges going forward, which, of course, I also need to calibrate my thinking and my decision making, and that those conversations and discussions help a lot. So I really appreciate and value the GPCA.
And next year is going to be in my home country, Bahrain. So
Perfect.
I'll make sure that you get the invitation.
Okay, thank you so much. I will take you up on this one.
Yes, of course. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Christian Kohlpaintner, for sitting down and having this interesting conversation. And thank you to our listeners. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the GPCA podcast. And inshallah, we'll see you in the next episode.